Israel, extraordinary. As I said, Witkoff is meeting with Netanyahu today. The president on Truth Social this morning said this, 108, moving back towards the pro-Israel position rather than what's been the case over the last few days, where he's been critical of the Israeli government. The fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. Right? That's a very pro-Israel position, saying as the Israelis do, if Hamas would just do what it needs to do, there'd be no humanitarian crisis. There's obviously some truth to that. Israel is now dividing both the left and the right. We see it now with a lot of folks, particularly younger people, who don't have the traditional Republican or Trump attitude towards just reflexive support for Israel. They look at it as just another forever war that they don't want the United States to be involved in. And they don't have any particular allegiance to Netanyahu. And you see it on the left now. Dan, you and I were talking about this earlier, where Mamdani, to the extent he drifts away from some of his previous statements on the Middle East and on the Palestinians, he faces wrath from the far left, which also has no loyalty to Israel. So as on trade, as on immigration, as on a few other issues, the Bernie Sanders wing of the Democratic Party and the far MAGA wing of the Republican Party is just not connected to Israel the way Donald Trump is, the way Chuck Schumer is. So where do you think we're headed there in terms of both the humanitarian crisis and Netanyahu's next steps?
Look, I think it's a similar conversation to the Russia issue, which is Israel wants to finish the job. That's the phrase that they keep using, and they want to get rid of Hamas. I think one of the interesting things about Trump's statement last night was, I think it's the Saudis, the UAE, and somebody else came out and called for Hamas to give up, which was astonishing. And I imagine that was due to the U.S. working with them to get them on board to try to split the Arab world here. And I think Trump needed to make that statement. But I go back. I talked about this a few months ago, which is I don't know how you can argue that we need to end the Russian war and stop wasting U.S. money with Ukraine and turn around and say we're going to keep arming the Israelis. Like just the raw politics of it for MAGA. Right. I'm not talking about my own personal view.
Yeah.
I think it's a problem because if you're Israel, you've come this far now. You're on the 20-yard line or the 30-yard. I don't think that Netanyahu is going to say, fine, it's time for us to stop. Hamas kind of remains somewhat intact. Iran is trying to regroup, and we're going to now just, go back to the way things were. So, I said this yesterday, the Israelis are not saying, yes, they're suffering, and we're going to try to fix this for these children. They keep saying it's fake news, literally right. Fake news. So there's a difference there.
Yeah, I'll be super curious to see what kind of readout we get from Witkoff today.
And Carolyn Levitt and what she says today.
Yeah, totally. Watching both those.
Want more great clips like that? I've got an idea. Hit the subscribe button, be part of the Two-Way community. Never miss a clip. And you can always watch our full episodes, join them live. Go to twoway.tv.